today we're going to look at the link between something called the mole and masses of substances. Now the mole in simple terms is a bit like a dozen. A dozen eggs is always 12 eggs. A mole of a chemical substance is always a certain number of particles. It happens to be 6.02 times 10 to the 23, but I wouldn't worry too much about that for the minute. If we weigh out the relative atomic mass of an element or the relative formula mass of a compound, then we have weighed out exactly 1 mole of that substance. So we will have weighed out, when we weigh out 1 mole of a substance, that huge number, 6.02 times 10 to the 23 particles of that substance. Now the mass of 1 mole of any substance in grams, it has units, is the same value as its relative atomic mass or relative formula mass, depending on whether you're talking about an element or a compound or a molecule. So there's a magic equation that links the number of moles and the mass and the MR or AR. And that is number of moles equals mass divided by MR or AR. And we'll look at some examples using that little equation in a minute. But for now, here's a formula triangle to help, and that will come up in the exercises I want you to do on hot potatoes in a minute. But for now, just want you to do some quick little calculations. Okay, try the first table, and then I'll run through it, and then we'll go through the second table. So pause the video and go through the answers to the first table. You will need a periodic table in front of you. So pause the video now, please. Okay, this is probably easier than you thought it would be. The answer here, relative atomic mass of carbon from the periodic table, is 12. So the mass of 1 mole of carbon is 12 grams. Oxygen, relative atomic mass 16. Mass of 1 mole, 16 grams. Magnesium, 24 for the relative atomic mass. 24 grams for the mass of 1 mole. Okay, that wasn't too hard, was it? So now have a look at the next one. See if you can work out the answers to each one of those. Again, pause the video and try and work it out, and then I will provide you with the answers. So stop the video now. So water, formula H2O, relative formula mass 2 times 1 plus 16, which equals 18. Mass of 1 mole, 18 grams. Carbon dioxide, CO2, relative formula mass 12 plus 2 times 16, which is 44. So the mass of 1 mole, 44 grams. Calcium oxide, you may not know the formula of that, but you can work it out. It's Ca2 plus with O2 minus. So the formula is CaO. 40 plus 16 gives 56 for its relative formula mass, and so the mass of 1 mole is 56 grams. So we need to look at some sample calculations of the sort you might get in your GCSE exam. There are 2 types. There's calculate the mass of, there's calculate the number of moles in. We'll look at the first type first. So calculate the mass of 2 moles of calcium carbonate. Well, you can use the magic triangle if you wish and rearrange that formula, and you get the mass is the moles times the MR. So what I want you to do again is just briefly pause the video and work out the MR of calcium carbonate. So the answer to this question, the mass, which is what you're trying to calculate, is the number of moles, 2 times the MR of C8CO3. That's 40 plus 12 plus 3 times 16, which comes to 100. So the answer to the question is 200 grams. Second sample calculation, by all means pause the video, shut me up for a minute or two and try and work it out yourself if you wish to. Second sample calculation, same magic formula, mass is moles times MR. So 0.5 times the MR of sodium hydroxide. MR of sodium hydroxide, 23 plus 16 plus 1, which is 40. So your sum is 0.5 times 40, which comes to, doesn't take a genius to work it out, which is why I can do it, which comes to 20 grams. Okay, there's a hot potatoes exercise for you to practice all of those type of calculation. And then there's a second hot potatoes exercise for you to practice this slight variation on it. Calculate the number of moles present in the following. So 120 grams of magnesium oxide. We need to rearrange the formula again, and you get the number of moles is the mass over the MR. Whichever way you want to do that, if you want to do that using the formula triangle, all well and good. The formula triangles, or formula triangle even, does appear in the hot potatoes exercise, so you won't have to keep coming back to this PowerPoint to find it, or this video to find it. So the number of moles, because that's what the question says, calculate the number of moles, is the mass, that's given in the question, divided by the MR. That's the bit you've got to work out. So again, pause the video, work it out, and then see if you've got it right. So the MR of magnesium oxide is 24 for magnesium plus 16 for oxygen, which comes to 40. So 120 over 40 should be your sum, and that comes to 3 moles. Okay, if you want to abbreviate moles, please do not write it as 3m, because of course that's 3 meters. So that doesn't make any sense. The only abbreviation that's acceptable for moles is MOL. Okay, I don't want to see anybody writing 3 meters or anything like stupid like that for their answer. So here's a second example of that type. 1.48 grams of calcium hydroxide. Again, you can stop me now or whenever you want during this little sequence and try and work on it yourself. So we want to calculate a number of moles, so we're going to use the formula like that again. The mass is given in the question, and the MR we have to work out. So work out the MR. Pause the video briefly while you do it, and then you can check that you've got the right answer as I go through it. So the MR of calcium hydroxide is 40 for calcium, 2 times 16 for oxygen, 2 times 1 for hydrogen. Okay, don't forget that 2 there means twice everything in the brackets. So I get 40 plus 32 plus 2, and that comes to 74. So I get that as my sum, 1.48 over 74. And that comes to 0.02 moles. Now, have a go at the hot potatoes exercise. There will be proper worksheets where you will be required to submit answers coming probably next week, because I think there's quite a lot for you to do here, where you can practice those skills and I can actually see whether you've nailed them or not. Hot potatoes is totally non-threatening. Just have a go. If you get it wrong, it doesn't matter. Remember, you can actually get the answers to come up for some of the questions anyway when you do some checking. Okay, so good luck with those.